Welcome to Discover You, an inspiring podcast exploring cutting-edge solutions to our everyday psychological challenges. We explore complex mental health issues and talk to professionals, experts, and renowned authorities at the forefront of transformative healing. Our mission is to educate and destigmatize, and to ultimately view mental health as a proactive quest for optimized living and equilibrium, rather than mere crisis intervention. Welcome to another episode of Discover You, our podcast exploring innovative and effective solutions to issues in mental and behavioral health. I'm JD Culmanson, CEO of Montare Behavioral Health, one of the larger and faster growing mental health companies in Southern California. I'm thrilled to introduce you to today's esteemed guests, Ron Tannebaum and Ken Pomerance, who together founded an organization called In the Rooms, a free digital meeting website and social network for the addiction recovery community. In the Rooms has over 820,000 members in 136 different countries, providing a virtual space for people to connect with others in recovery around the globe. A little bit about them. Ronald Tannebaum has 38 years of long-term recovery and has dedicated his life to helping make the recovery movement a positive mainstream force in the world today. Together with Ken, he launched intherooms.com in 2008. Ronald has over 40 years in entrepreneurial experience in sales, marketing, promotions, particularly in the field of sports. And his company, The Sports Arena, has partnerships with major sports companies. Ken Pomerance also has 38 years of long-term recovery and 40 years of successful entrepreneurial experience. In 1984, Kenny co-founded the New Life Recovery Center in Miami, a premier addiction treatment center that helped numerous rock stars, writers, high-profile athletes, and politicians. So happy to have you both here today. Thank you for joining us. Now, everyone has their reasons for getting into their line of work. There's a sort of destiny that really leads us to where we ought to be in life. I know that for me, growing up in a sheltered environment and having a very close friend of mine who grew up literally around the corner, went to the same school, shared all of our holidays and uplifting experiences together, came from a really loving home, ended up overdosing right after he got married. And that was a pretty much a turning point in me starting to see the tragedy up close of addiction, the consequences, the indiscriminate nature of how it impacts our communities. And that led to me volunteering at a local ethnic rehab. And then one thing led to the next. And we're pretty deeply involved in it and trying to make a difference. So tell me a little bit about you guys. I'd love to know what it is that inspired you and motivated you to start this really global force of online recovery meetings.
Well, what motivated us was we've been friends for years. We met in college at the University of Florida in Gainesville, Florida, in 1970. We were in undergraduate school, and back in the 70s, it was the era of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And we lost touch with each other after graduating from college, and then on September 20th, 1983, a friend of mine introduced me to recovery. I was staying at his house my last day out there in the world. And he said he was in recovery. And he said to me, "Do you remember Ken Pomerance from college?" I said, "Sure." He said, "He's on his way over here. He's 9 months clean." And in walks Kenny. And it's the first time, this was 1983, we hadn't seen each other since 1971. And that night, him and my other friend took me to my first 12-step meeting, and I've never picked up a drink or a drug since.
Wow. That's amazing. That's great. And that's so beautiful how friendships sometimes, everybody thinks that they have to be super, consistent and they just flow naturally. And then you guys picked it up many years later. That's really, really special. Yeah.
We did.
So you were
talking to founding In the Rooms was we became very close friends, family friends. My wife and I introduced him to his wife. his kid, he has a son and a daughter. I have a son and a daughter. They grew up together. Our daughters are still best friends since birth. And then one day, Kenny and I were doing a marketing venture, and he walked into my office in 2007 and said, "What do you think about a Facebook for recovery?" And I said, "Let's do it." He said, "No, I'm not kidding." I said, "Either am I." And we started that night with our vision of how to launch in the rooms, and the rest is history.
Wow. So when you first created intherooms.com, did you envision it growing to where it is today? Was that a part of the plan?
Not at all. There wasn't really anything like In the Rooms at the time. So we really had no idea. But, we were talking at one point, we were going to shoot for 10,000 members. Remember, Ronnie? And we went to a music festival, a recovery music festival. And we were talking about, well, wouldn't it be great if we had like 10,000 recovering people on this website? And it boggled the mind. And people told us we would never. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Because back then, you have to remember there was such a stigma attached to addiction, and everybody was so concerned about their anonymity. So we really didn't get the traction that we thought we would initially, but it has just taken off over the years.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So how has COVID-19 affected In the Rooms? I mean, I could see that going either way, of course. Personally, I never forget my experiences visiting 40 prisons throughout New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, Colorado, and sitting down with inmates and trying to offer them words of encouragement, doing a meditation with them. And there was such deep bonding and elevation that occurred. And there was a lot of it that had to do with just the in-person vibe and dynamic and energy that was flowing from us to them and them to us. And of course, anybody who's gone to an in-person meeting, a good meeting, there's a lot of identical vibes going on. And then here it's online. So there's that challenge, of course. And then the whole world is going online, but we're kind of learning how to adapt in that sense, and more people are wanting it. So I'm sure everybody would love to know, how has it affected In the Rooms?
Well, first of all, we had meetings 9 years ago, live online meetings 9 years ago, way before COVID-19. And
way before Zoom.
Way before Zoom. And our meetings are not like Zoom. Our meetings are set up like a real 12-step meeting, and not with 30 faces talking at the same time, if you want. Ours is not like that. I don't know if you've taken a look at our platform that we've built, but we built our own proprietary platform. But so we were well versed in this, and we had a lot of people going to our meetings. But when COVID-19 hit the world, meeting rooms closed, and we were up and running, and we exploded. I mean, we went from having 80 to 100, maybe 120 people in meetings to at the beginning of COVID, 800 people in some meetings. Mm-hmm. And to this day, there's a lot of meetings that we have. We have over 650 meetings on our platform a month. So some of our meetings today at 10 a.m., the 10 a.m. AA meeting that we had over 500 people in. Yep. And it's global. These aren't home groups. These are global groups. These are members of intherooms.com. So you'll see people in every meeting room from all over the world. You'll see people in Australia with their bathrobe on, and it's tomorrow, in the same meeting where I am on the East Coast, and it's 10 a.m. in the morning. People all over Europe and Asia, all in the same meeting. So it's really an incredible platform that we have here.
We also have a number of people that have joined In the Rooms because they were in drug court. Or they were dealing with some criminal issue in the court system, and there were no courts. So where do people go for recovery? and the word got out that we had a platform that in our meetings, we provide a timestamped verification so that the judge, parole officer, whomever, knows that the person actually went to the meeting, and instead of getting the signed slip that you see at a lot of meetings that gets forged quite often, this is a computerized timestamp. So there's absolute proof that the person was in the meeting.
Right, it's emailed directly to them.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. By the way, I have to say, I love the name, because really the brand in the rooms, the name really connotes that despite this technological platform, you're still getting that vibe and you're still getting that sentiment that you're in the room, which is so important to preserve. And on that topic, what do you say are the major differences, in your opinion, and based on the experience that you're seeing, and you're seeing such a high volume of that experience between the in-person meetings and the online meetings? Are they attracting different types of people? What, are they as effective? What are you finding?
They're definitely as effective. Go ahead.
We started out by saying that these meetings, online meetings, would augment face-to-face meetings. And our biggest surprise, I think, for both of us, was that people started having long-term recovery in the rooms and never going to a face-to-face meeting. And originally, we thought that the meetings would be impersonal. RT and I love going to meetings and getting hugs. And you don't get a virtual hug is just not the same thing. But we've noticed that the people pour their hearts out on face-to-face meetings because they're in their comfort zone. They're in their living room, their bedroom. They're comfortable. They're not looking at a room full of strangers, and setting off anxiety. They just talk and really let it all hang out. And some of the most poignant shares I've ever heard in recovery in 38 years, I've heard on online meetings.
And the difference is between other meeting platforms and ours, and why we have a lot of people on our site and in our meetings, is ours is not a meeting site. Ours is a community. Ours is a community that they're 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. There's always hundreds of thousands of people online a lot of time. There's always meetings going. So like other platforms, you go to your meeting for an hour and you go off. Here people stay on the site and they create relationships. They have sponsors online. They are in the same affinity groups. They belong to the same fellowship. We have 40 different recovery fellowships in the rooms.
Wow.
So the original concept for us when we launched this was to transcend the boundaries of all 12-step and non-12-step fellowships. And then we have an individual group for each fellowship, an AA, an NA, an OA, a GA, and all the rest of them. And we branched out since then to yoga and recovery. We have 5 daily meditations on our site every week. We have healthy love in recovery. We have just a lot of things that go beyond the 12 steps and other meetings, because what do we do when we get a lot of clean time or sober time in recovery is we want to improve our lives. And how do we do that? Through meditation, through prayer, through yoga, through wellness and health. And so we have meetings for all of those genres too.
That's so beautiful. And it's so aligned with the philosophy that we have at Montare, which is basically, you come into a treatment center for a crisis and you're there to stabilize the crisis. But it's something so much more than that, because ultimately it serves as the catalyst and the platform for optimizing your life in ways that you never saw possible. And this was the beginning of that journey. So real recovery does, like you said, Ronald, translate into so many other areas of life. Such a richer life, such a fuller life, and you discover the why you want to wake up in the morning. And when there's a why, there's a way. And I love that. And Ken, just to piggyback on what you're saying, in the clinical community, we're finding as well that telehealth actually contains a unique advantage and is advantageous in the sense that sometimes the client and the participant is willing to share more, to unbear their chest in a way that they'd never do. They would never allow themselves to be so vulnerable in person. And because people, at the face value, they're like, hey, online, is it safe? Well, talk to the person who's so poignant and so vulnerable precisely because he feels more safe and less judged, as it were, than when you're in the room. And I love that it's more than just a Zoom meeting. It's a community, because that really does take it to the next level. And that kind of answers one of the questions that I had for you guys. Is this a platform where people are able to forge meaningful and long-lasting relationships, find a sponsor? And you're saying yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, if you were to go on today, if you see all the discussions about people who are in the Louisiana, Mississippi area, there's a community there. Everybody's trying to reach out and connect with people, letting everybody know that our members there are okay, or they haven't heard from them. And, we notice that whenever there's like a big nor'easter up in the Massachusetts area, New York, Massachusetts, where you see they're prepping for a big storm to come, and all of a sudden you see everybody come online. Why? Well, I guess there's not a lot of other things to be doing, but it's that sense of community that keeps us together. And it's very powerful, very, very powerful. We never thought when we started that we would have that kind of connection. We've had our members get married, have kids. I mean, it's been crazy.
It is.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I guess my question would be, is this for everybody? The way I kind of had imagined it was that folks who are beginning in their recovery would probably do better in an in-person and then maintain their sobriety and recovery with, the in the rooms concept, or, they're able to maintain it with a technological platform similar to, a root of a tree being stronger than the branches. But I'm hearing a different story. Is that, would you make that distinction, or you don't find that even in the beginning, there's something deficient, and you see, the community, even online, can provide all of that? What would you guys say?
There's something on in the rooms for everybody. Whether everybody's going to get there to find that out is another story. We have been telling people since we'll have 13 years online October 6th. So a lot of people still have that stigma that Kenny talked about online as compared to face-to-face meetings, and we always say, just try it. A lot of people are still not open-minded enough to try it. A lot more people tried it after COVID-19. And but I think there is something for everybody. And I don't know, everybody's never going to find that out. But we do know this, that you're in the treatment business. When you say to Jimmy Smith, who's leaving to go back home to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and you tell him, Jimmy, I want you to go to a meeting tonight and raise your hand and say you need help. And Jimmy's 21 years old, and he's going, you're crazy. But I guarantee you, Jimmy feels more comfortable coming to intherooms.com and anonymously going to a live online meeting and listening and putting his toe in the water to see what it's like without having to put his name up there and his picture up there. He can stay as anonymous as he chooses till he's ready to do that. And
we've had so many people that have come on to In the Rooms, and their very first comment is, save the 12-step stuff, I'm not interested. And then after a week or so, you see them, well, I'm thinking about going to a meeting and one of these online meetings. Which one should I go to? And then after a while, I'm thinking about going to a face-to-face meeting. And then some other member says, I'll meet you there. And you watch them evolve. And when they started out, they said, I had absolutely no interest. Don't even talk to me about 12-step meetings. It wasn't ever anything that we ever thought was possible.
And it's so helpful, particularly in a society that we're, so conditioned to have everything available at our fingertips. I mean, even the experience of eating out in the restaurant has been irreparably transformed. I mean, you just get it to your door wherever you are with Postmates. So, that kind of mentality and culture, for it to translate into something as vital and important as recovery, is such a helpful enhancement. I mean, wherever you go, there's no excuse. You're on vacation, you plug in wherever, whenever. If you can't get up, you're not feeling it. I'm just waiting to be able to get my fitness that way, somehow work out in the gym. If you guys have any ideas on that, I'd love something on that line. I'd love to. What was that?
As I got a Peloton right behind me.
That's right. As long as it shows up on my scale, we're okay. Ground rules. What are the ground rules in the meetings? How do you monitor the meetings? How do you keep them safe on just on a technical level?
Well, go ahead, Ken.
That's been one of the most remarkable things, because that when we first started, we were thinking about having to have administrators, mods, and what happened is that the community polices themselves. They adhere as much as possible to the traditions, spiritual principles, and we get to sort out the craziness, when it occurs. They come to the two dads, I guess, and we get personal messages about someone acted out at the meeting, or but for the most part, we have done really nothing as far as the policing of the community. They do it themselves. They care about their community and they want to protect it.
That's
but
amazing.
When it comes to meetings, ours are set up just like a regular meeting. The chairperson moderates the meeting and has control of everything. If someone's acts out, we have a box with 9 streams with people who raise their hand, which is live streaming. If someone acts out in those boxes, the chairperson can take them right out of the chair box. We thought we'd have much more of that, but we have very, very little of that because it's not.
And also, we don't get involved at all in the meetings themselves. There's a business group. They handle that. Every group has got business meetings. The fellowship has business meetings. We don't. We are essentially, we're the landlords. We're the church, the school, where they meet.
Right.
But we don't get involved in the meetings themselves, and we like it that way, in adherence to the tradition.
It's a real democracy.
Yeah.
You keep it. That's amazing. Random question. So do you guys ever go on the meetings and participate, and do people recognize who you are? How does that work? Or is it still anonymous?
We participate in meetings when we want to or have to, yes. And everyone knows this because we greet every person when they join in the rooms, both Kenny and I. And every morning for almost 13 years, we wish everyone who's celebrating that day, their recovery anniversary, we wish them happy anniversary every morning individually.
That's beautiful.
They know who we are. We communicate with people. If people send us a private message, an instant message, we always return the messages, every one of them.
I actually just want to say something that's so beautiful. For everyone who's listening, we actually had to cut out a good chunk of Ronald and Ken's bios because they're so extensive and they're so beautiful, and they've been doing so many beautiful things in their life. And here I'm seeing such a light in your eyes when you talk about this, even though it's almost 13 years, there's no jadedness, there's no burnout. And it's like, this really looks like it's a calling. It's a real passion. It's a labor of love. And I just want to say that's an amazing thing. Congratulations. That's very, very special. Very special. How have these online meetings opened up any type of new perspective that you might have, new insight into different supports that, the recovery community might be most benefiting from? Is there anything that, prior to this you might not have observed, but being so exposed so many people to such a global audience that, gives you a different insight into what's working, what's not working, and what the future might look like if you had it your way?
Well, at the beginning, why did you guys want to do this? And the answer was to bring, like you were so eloquently saying, we wanted to bring, and you even used the term, we wanted to bring recovery to the fingertips of everybody around the world at every nook and cranny, regardless of their geography. That was our goal. Because Kenny and I have great lives, we have great families, we have long-term recovery, and we wanted to share that with people. We're not into this for our ego. We're not into this for the money. We're into this for the passion of recovery. So now we see that happening. When we first launched, we wanted to have virtual meetings, but the technology wasn't there. And as soon as it was, we built the platform and we did it. And to watch it blossom to where COVID-19 helped it explode, and really watch people come on that have never experienced online recovery before and just relished in it, was just very self-gratifying for both of us.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's so nice. And, do you currently have, or do you have plans for some type of aid platform for somebody who's going through a challenge, a crisis in the middle of the night, for example, and they can't call their sponsors or their peers, and they feel like they're imminently going to relapse? Is there something for them in the rooms?
That actually, I can't believe you asked that question, because it was one of our first features that we added on after our initial initial start, and it was a burning desire button. If you're familiar with 12-step meetings, very often they will say, does anybody have a burning desire if they want to hurt themselves, if they want to drink or drug? And usually it's the end of the meeting and somebody will pour their heart out. Well, we have a button that they push, and it frames their profile page, and in red, and it lets people know that they are struggling and they need help. Well, we weren't sure if anybody was really going to pay attention to it. But as soon as somebody hit that burning desire button, what do we want to do as recovering people? We want to help other people. And if you see somebody that's struggling, our community reaches out en masse to help these people. And it's beautiful. That was one of our better ideas, I think, that wasn't part of our initial scope of development. But as soon as we put it up, it was a hit, because we are helping a lot of people that were really struggling.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And that's visionary. I mean, that's something that's probably saved countless lives, because when somebody's got a burning desire, there's clearly a crisis and a danger. In terms of the recovery meeting, so you were saying that you've got holistic, other forms of healing and self-help, and then you have obviously the 12-step meetings. Do you also feature non-12-step support meetings within the context of recovery?
We have 5 women's meetings on our site that are universal women's meetings. We have men's meetings that are universal men's meetings that called Spiritual Gangsters. We have Dharma recovery, which is Buddhist 12 steps. We have agnostic NA, agnostic AA. We have a Pride NA meeting, a Pride AA meeting. We try to do whatever we can to be as open to every type of person in the world.
That's so inspiring, because it also goes to show you how widespread this dependency is, and it finds its way into every community and every strand of thought. And you're providing a platform that resonates for the most diverse crowd possible. My last question:
COVID-19 support group meeting.
What was that?
A COVID-19 support group meeting we launched over a year ago.
Wow.
It's still on our site.
That's incredible. I hope that shuts down real soon. How has the rooms fundamentally impacted the way you view yourselves in the world? How has it changed and enriched your lives personally? I mean, I know for me, thank God, I'm fortunate and blessed to say that the career that I've chosen is very much aligned with my passion. So that's every day is just such a joy to get up and do what I do. And I know that that's obviously the case with you guys. So how has it impacted? I mean, you've had lengthy, successful careers prior to that. So, what has this done?
We both of us have made a lot more money in our lives. I can tell you that. This isn't about money. This is about doing what we know is right. My father used to say that if you love what you do for a living, you never have to go to work. And that's the way it is. Ronnie and I, we have had fun doing this. Sure, there've been some headaches down the way, but for the most part, we love what we do every day. We love meeting people. I don't think that a day goes by we don't get a testimonial letter, a thank you for in the rooms. Well, both of us get these letters all the time, and that you can't. There's not enough money in the world to give you that kind of satisfaction. So, yeah, we're happy campers with what we do every day.
Yeah, this is not a vocation for us. I'll speak for Kenny too, because we both have mirrored lives. Is our passion is recovery in our family. We are both married to women in long-term recovery. My wife has 36 years. His wife has 35 years. We have 2 kids. He has a son and a daughter. I have a son and a daughter. They have never seen either of their parents ever pick up a drink or a drug. We have role modeled our children, so hopefully we break the chain of addiction in their lives. And they can go on, and so far, so good. I mean, and they're not kids. The youngest one's 28 out of our 4 kids. So that is gratifying to us, and for us to incorporate that in what we do for a living is like magic to me, and I know it is to Kenny too. We wake up every morning on in the rooms wishing people anniversaries, and we're on the site in and out all day long and answering people's messages and putting fires out. And that's what we want to do. We're still passionate about recovery. There's no reason for us not to be, with all the gifts we have in our lives.
That's so beautiful. Because the truth is, what you're saying is this recovery is not just technical abstinence. It's a lifestyle. And it's a very, very deep, enriching, beautiful lifestyle that you guys so masterfully embody and personify. You ever thought about doing a grand 500,000 person recovery concert with your community?
We thought all of that.
Before COVID, we wanted to be to take a whole cruise ship out. That was, but
yeah.
Actually, if you remember a few years ago, I think it was 3 years ago in DC, was a big recovery concert, United Recovery or Unite Addiction. What was it called? In DC. And we went there actually, and we had a booth, and we shared this big tent with a couple of our peers in recovery, very in their own right, yoga people in recovery, but they're known to be in the recovery movement. Nikki Myers, Tommy Rosen, and us, and we shared this big tent. And we known all these people on in the rooms intimately for years and years, but have never met them in person. All we see is their picture in the room, and we speak to them and see them, and they go back and forth. And we're sitting in this tent during this weekend, and hundreds of these people that we never met are streaming into our tent. And we got to hug them for the first time and meet them face to face. It was one of the most emotional weekends we've ever had.
It's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah,
if I could give you guys a name, it would be the Simon and Garfunkel of recovery. That's what you guys are. Really, thank you so much for joining us on the Discover You podcast. Such an enjoyable time, and it's so inspiring. There's so much hardship going on in the world, and we always read about the negativity, the toxicity, and every once in a while, people have to hear about the beacons of light and hope for a better tomorrow. And if there's anything you'd like to share with our viewers and listeners, please, before we wrap up this wonderful episode.
Yeah,
I just want to say you're all welcome to come to intherooms.com and check it out. We'd love to see you.
It's free. Come and get us.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us again. And thank you to all the listeners for another wonderful episode of the Discover You podcast. Stay tuned for the next one.